Hello, and welcome to the fourth of our lessons about the planets. Welcome. I hope you've been enjoying the series so far. We've covered 3 of the planets. We've covered the music of Holst. We've looked at the planets themselves, and we've looked at Roman mythology. And we're going to continue with that sort of idea today. Now, before we sort of get going, and this is something that we've sort of I tried to get you to get together before we start the lesson each week. You can either have hopefully had a look and downloaded from the website as a PDF or from the Facebook page as JPEGs the worksheets that are associated with today's lesson. If you have those, fantastic, brilliant. They are going to be really helpful. If you don't have those, it's not the end of the world. You can still participate. You can still join in. You can still do everything that we're going to be doing in the lesson today, because everything is on the screen. It will be on the screen for you. And you just need a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. You might need a couple of pieces of paper today to have a go at the different activities that we're going to be doing. And it's a perfect opportunity as well at the end of the lesson to maybe revisit bits of the lesson and sort of expand on what you've done. There's going to be an element of that today as well. So without any more chit chat from me, let's get on, shall we? We're going to have a listen to the very beginning of the next movement of the Holst planets. We've done the first 3. We're going to be listening to Jupiter, the Bringer of Jollity. And I think in many ways, this is probably my favourite of the movements, the 7 movements from the planet suite. So have a little listen to this and have it. It's very short. I'm not playing you a long bit. I'm only playing you a very, very short segment of this. And what I want you to do is think about what in the music makes it sound jolly, because it's supposed to jolly, happy. What in the music makes it sound happy? So we're looking for happiness in music. I'll play it a couple of times for you so that you get an idea of how it goes. Here it is for the first time. Okay, so that's all we're going to have a little listen to. So I'm going to play it you again because it is so short, and get some ideas down on paper. Okay, so let's have a little think about what in that piece of music makes it sound jolly. What makes it sound happy? Now, I'm assuming, and I may be assuming a lot, but I'm assuming that some of you have written down that it has quite a fast tempo. And absolutely, that helps to give it that jolly feel. So it's got a fast tempo, and the rhythms are very busy. There's lots of things going on, but then you've got this big tune, dum 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 dum, which is a bit like a brass fanfare that comes in, and that helps to make it all very jolly and happy. Now, I would love to actually have brought in, I mean, I've created that recording. It's not an original recording. It's not an orchestra. This is me creating, using computers, the music for this. If you were to listen to the whole movement, it would be about 8 minutes long. And I'd love to play you the whole movement, but I'm not going to be able to. So go away and have a listen to the whole movement, because you've got these amazing happy sections like this very, very beginning section. And then Holst's really clever. This is quite a cinematic piece. You could use it for film because he breaks it up into lots of different ideas. And depending on how you count those ideas, you could say there's 4 or you could say there's 6 of ideas within the whole piece of music. We're only listening to a tiny bit of a tiny bit, if you see what I mean. So there's a lot to this piece of music. The end of the movement, at the very, very end, but what we'd consider like the coda section to finish it off, he brings together all of these ideas that he comes up with throughout the whole movement and puts them all in at the end to sort of gather it all together and finish it off. Now, we're going to be looking at all sorts of things within this movement today. We're only going to be able to hear 3 sections of it, but we're going to look at those 3 sections perhaps in a little bit more depth. There is a hymn in the middle of Jupiter, and we will have a look at that a little bit later on. It's a hymn that's called I Vow to Thee, My Country. And this middle section wasn't written as a hymn. It was used as a hymn because it just lent itself to it. And Holst himself found some words, and we'll talk about that later, and put the words to it and created the hymn I Vow to Thee, My Country. So you can see what I mean about how it's all broken up into different sections. All the musical ideas that you're going to hear begin with the 3 same notes. Da, 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 da. Every single bit of this movement, as you work through all the different segments, begins with da, da, da. Now, I know a TV program that has that at the beginning of it. It's called Postman Pat, and it's the beginning of the theme music for Postman Pat. Interesting, isn't it? You're not going to be able to unhear that now. I haven't been able to since I found that out. So every time you hear a new musical idea, it starts with da, 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 Postman Pat. Okay, it uses the full orchestra, this movement. Over 100 musicians are playing within this. I mean, it's epic. This is an epic, epic movement. And it uses a lot of percussion as well. There's triangles and cymbals and all sorts of things going on, glockenspiels and things like that. It's all there for us in this movement. There's a lot going on, and that makes it even more dramatic. And the different sections use different time signatures, and we've talked about time signatures before, about 4/4 and 3/4 and 2/4, or time signatures where you're counting like 6/8 but you're counting in 2 and all this sort of stuff. So he uses a lot of different time signatures for the different sections, and the sections don't really sort of link into one another like we've had with other movements. They are sort of like, that's the end of that one, let's start the next one. So there is that sort of feeling of each bit has its own little bit of identity within it. So we're going to have a look at something with using this opening idea. I mean, there's a lot there for us to sort of take on board. We're going to have a think about something called a graphic score today. This piece of music lends itself to using a graphic score. And a graphic score is when you write music down using pictures and symbols rather than musical notes. If I presented to you a score, the musical notes written down for this piece of music, I would imagine that you would find that a bit daunting. You'd just see all of these different instruments playing, all listed, and all these notes written down. It would be like, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to read this? It would be maybe a bit overwhelming and a little bit too much. But if you write the music down using pictures and symbols for the different instruments, the different types of sounds, how the dynamics work when it gets louder or quieter, using those pictures can really help you to understand the music. And that's why we're going to have a little look at graphic scores today, because they are a really useful tool. And there are pieces of music out there where composers have just written it down as a graphic score. They've got a musical idea, they've written it down as a graphic score, and then it's really up to your own interpretation of the pictures and symbols to have a go at playing it. So I've created a little graphic score for Jupiter. Here's this opening idea that we've just listened to, but written down using pictures. And if you're using the worksheet, you can find it at the bottom of the first page. And it's symbols to represent the different sounds. Now, if I play you the opening of Jupiter again so that you can hear the music as you follow the score, see if you can follow what's going on. Okay, so let's have a little look at the pictures that I've used on my graphic score. So I've got stars at the beginning because I think that opening string idea, if I just play it to you, sounds like stars twinkling. And then the horns, the brass section come in, which is why I've got that sort of horn shape with the sound coming out for this little fanfare idea. And then we get a little bit of dramatic, a little bit of drama in there because the percussion comes in. We've got a drum roll, and at the same time as the drum is playing, we have that brass idea of dum. It builds, and then we get other instruments added, and they are also crescendoing as well. And all that time, the strings are playing that sort of shimmery star idea. And then we move on to the next line down, the second row, and we have the drums playing throughout this section. The percussion, the timpanis are playing throughout this section, and you've got the brass and the other instruments playing, and you've still got that twinkling idea in the strings. And then we have a tiny little break, and then they come in with this boom, and it's really loud and dramatic. We've got a crash of the cymbals. We've got the drums playing very loudly. We've got the brass playing. And then the strings aren't playing the tinkly star idea anymore. They do a da 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 da. And that's those sort of, I don't know, shards of lightning maybe, because I was thinking of the Roman god at the time when I was writing this down. So you've got these sort of shards coming down to represent those strings. It's not just the strings, it's the woodwind as well. So you've got that da 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 over the top while all this drama is going on. So when you put it all together, builds. Next line. Okay. Now, that I think is relatively straightforward to follow. If you are following it as a graphic score, you can sort of see or hear you using those symbols, the combination of the two, of the strings twinkling away, the brass build up, and everything else. Now, that's my interpretation. You might think to yourself, well, do you know what? I wouldn't have used that. I wouldn't have used that symbol. I would have done something different. I would have preferred to have used, I don't know, something else for the twinkly sound on the strings at the start. I don't know what you could have used, but you could. There's lots of things that you could use for the different instruments and the representation of them. You're going to have a little go. So we're going to have a little go at creating a graphic score for the end section of Jupiter. And if you're using the worksheets, you've actually got a space on the second page there for you to have a go at creating your score. But obviously you only need a piece of paper and a pencil, and you could do it quite easily yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you the end section of Jupiter. So we've gone from the very beginning to the very end. Okay. And what I want you to do is with a pencil, do it in pencil. Don't try and go straight to pens or felt tips or anything like that. Using a pencil, think about the sounds that you're hearing, the different instruments or types of sounds, and try and create a symbol or a picture you think that represents that instrument or that sound that you're hearing. And what you could do is then go back to this later on and perhaps add in some colours. So I used the yellow for the stars, I used the blue for the brass, I'd got like a golden colour for the cymbals crashing. It just added that little bit of colour. The percussion was in red because I thought it sounded a little bit angry maybe, but it's your interpretation, but draw it in pencil first. Okay, so we're going to have a little listen to this end section, and you first of all just listen to it, and then the second time perhaps have a think about what sort of symbols you could use, and then maybe we'll listen to another twice and you could sketch some little ideas in. So it's very short, about 10 seconds. Didn't want to give you anything too long and complicated. So have another little listen. So you've got a number of different ideas there. You've got the dum 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 idea. You've got a tambourine being shaken all the way through this bit. You've got the sort of a brassy type fanfare in there, and then you've got that end chord. Have another little listen, perhaps start sketching some ideas. You've got the timpani in there as well, doing a dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, which is quite dramatic. One more time. Now remember, there is no right or wrong with this. You can't be wrong. It's your interpretation, it's your imagery, your pictures to represent the sounds. You can't be wrong because it's what you think, it's how you feel about that piece of music. So whatever you draw will be absolutely fine. And if you put a little key at the bottom, which I obviously didn't, but I explained it to you, if you put a little key at the bottom, then people listening to it and following your graphic score would be able to understand what you're trying to demonstrate through your pictures. Now, the music for that is on the website under the live lessons and resources, on the live lessons and resources page at the bottom underneath the link to this lesson. So you can listen to it as many times as you want to, if you want to use my version, because obviously it's exact, you've got that exact point, or you can listen to a live orchestra playing it and just find that section at the very end on the recording. Either way is absolutely fine. But it's certainly something, it would be great to create those graphic scores, and then maybe if you sent me some pictures on the Facebook page of what you've created. I don't need to see you, I just would like to see your pictures. That would be great. Okay, let's move on, because we've talked, I mean, obviously it's a music lesson, we've talked a lot about the music, but as we're talking about planets, it would be great to actually have a think about the planet itself. And there's so much that I could tell you about the planet Jupiter. So for a start off, it is the largest planet in this solar system. 1,000 Earths could fit inside Jupiter. That's how big it is. That's enormous. It's the oldest planet because it was formed from the dust and the gases left over from the sun's formation 4.6 billion years ago. It has the shortest day in the solar system. It's only 9.9 hours for it to spin around on its axis. Clouds and swirls are actually cold, windy clouds of ammonia and water that are floating in an atmosphere of hydrogen and helium. And Jupiter's red spot is basically a giant storm that is bigger than the Earth, and it's been raging for hundreds of years. I mean, really, hundreds of years. It's thought of as sort of the king of the planets, so it was named after the king of the gods in Roman mythology, the name Jupiter, and we'll get on to Jupiter in Roman mythology in a little while. Most of its moons are named after mythological characters associated with Jupiter and his Greek counterpart, Zeus. And Jupiter's environment probably is not conducive to life as we know it, because it's very volatile and there's massive extremes of temperature and all sorts of things like that. However, the moons around Jupiter could possibly support life, and Europa is one of the likeliest places to find life elsewhere in our solar system, and there is evidence of an ocean beneath its icy crust. It takes 43 minutes for sunlight to travel from the sun to Jupiter. Jupiter forms a kind of miniature solar system with 4 large moons, and then there's lots and lots of smaller ones, and there are 95 officially recognised moons around Jupiter. The 4 largest moons were first seen and observed in 1610, so we're talking a long time ago, by Galileo Galilei, and he was using a very early version of a telescope. Jupiter is what we call a gas giant, so it doesn't have any true surface that you would be able to stand on. There's nowhere to land a spacecraft, but extreme pressures and temperatures inside the planet crust would melt and vaporize spacecraft trying to fly into the planet anyway. So, I mean, it's very, very volatile, very extreme, not really somewhere that I would want to visit, if I'm absolutely honest. Let's think about not just the planet, but the sort of spacecraft that have been sent to it to observe it. So as I said, they're not going to be able to land on the planet, but they are going to be able to explore it in other ways. NASA's Pioneer 10 was the very first mission that went to the outer planets. It was designed to last for 21 months, and it lasted for more than 30 years. And it sent its last signal to Earth in January 2003 from a distance of 7.6 billion miles away. Wow. NASA's Juno spacecraft has been studying Jupiter since July 2016. And the NASA's Europa Clipper was launched in 2024, October 2024, to go to study Europa, the icy moon. It's designed to discover whether there are places below the surface that could support life, because, as I said, they think that the moons are the best places to explore to see if there's anything that can support life. Quite amazing. Now, let's go back to the music for a little while. We talked about the fact that the middle part of Jupiter, the whole piece of music, the whole 8 minutes, has been sort of taken out and turned into a hymn. And it's called I Vow to Thee, My Country. Now, it was Gustav Holst himself who did this. He took it out from the movement and put the words to it, but he didn't write the words. It was a man called Sir Cecil Spring Rice who wrote the words. He was a British diplomat. He'd been to America. He'd been a diplomat over in America. He was around at the very beginning of the 20th century. That's when he was sort of working, etc. And this version of words, he'd written a poem originally much earlier, but the version of words we use today are the version that he sort of rewrote the poem in 1918 after the Great War, or as we know it, the First World War. Because the words that he had originally, he didn't feel were appropriate, and so he changed the words so that it was less about battles and fighting, because there had been so much loss during the First World War. So he rewrote the words. And then Holst decided to set these words to music from Jupiter in 1921. And that's when the hymn was sort of officially in existence. This hymn is in the top 6. I think it came 6th in a poll of the best hymns ever a few years ago, run by a program on BBC called Songs of Praise. And they decided that it was the 6th favourite hymn of people within the country. And it is a very patriotic hymn. So I'm going to play you the music for it. I will sing along with it. If you want to join in, if you know it, join in. If you want to have a go at trying to join in, then please do. It's very, very famous. Let's give it a go. I vow to thee, my country, all earthly things above, entire and whole and perfect, the service of my love, the love that asks no questions, the love that stands the test, that lays upon the altar the dearest and the best, the love that never falters, the love that pays the price, the love that makes undaunted the final sacrifice. And there's another country I've heard of long ago, most dear to them that love her, most great to them that know. We may not count her armies, we may not see her king, her fortress is a faithful heart, her pride is suffering, and soul by soul and silently her shining bounds increase, and her ways are ways of gentleness, and all her paths are peace. So it's very much about peace, being peacefulness towards the end. It's that contrast between we need to fight and we need to protect, but we want peace. The music for that is also on the website, so if you want to have a go at singing along to it and following it, then by all means do. So let's think about Jupiter, the god, the Roman god, the reason that Jupiter, the planet, is called Jupiter, the king of the planets. He is the supreme god linked with the Greek god Zeus, and he was the supreme god of all the Roman gods. He's a sky god. He commands the lightning, the thunder, the storms, the weather, the rain, all of that. And he uses thunderbolts as a weapon. And you can see he's got one of those in his hand. As I said, he's the king of the gods. He's the ruler of the Roman pantheon. And he's very often depicted as a mature man with a beard. He can also be seen sometimes wearing a crown or a laurel wreath. And he's also associated with justice, law, and order. He's the father of many of the Roman gods, including Mars, Mercury, and Venus. So there is a huge amount there. I mean, Jupiter as a Roman god, very important, very, very important in the Roman mythology as the king of the gods and the father of so many of those gods. And the idea of him commanding that lightning and thunder and storms and rain. And when you think about how inhospitable Jupiter, the planet, is, and how volatile and stormy, it seems very, very appropriate that the planet is actually named after him. So, how has Jupiter influenced other things? So, we've got music. If we think about the planet suite, obviously Holst has written about Jupiter, but there are other pieces of music out there that have been written about Jupiter. Mozart wrote the Jupiter Symphony. And then you've got, and I can never pronounce this correctly, but you've got Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra. I can never say it. Zarathustra, that's it. That is a piece of music that has been inspired by. So there's music out there other than Holst. Holst's Jupiter inspired John Williams, the composer, when he was writing the end credits for the film Star Wars in 1977. And that's a hugely epic piece of music. I mean, it's a fantastic piece of music. There's loads of artwork and sculptures of Jupiter, the Roman god, out there, because obviously the Romans would have been creating sculptures of their god. There would have been temples for them to worship him, etc. So there is artwork there, and there are sculptures out there representing Jupiter, the god. But if we go back to Jupiter from the Planet Suite by Holst, it's been used loads in TV and film programs. You've got The Simpsons, you've got Transformers, you've got games like Grand Theft Auto. And then very, very recently, in the last couple of years, it's been used in an episode of Bluey. Now, I love Bluey. And I would say, absolutely, go and have a watch of that Bluey episode, because it's just so beautifully done and the music is used so brilliantly. We are getting to the end of today's lesson. I mean, I've sort of just squished this all in. I've really shoehorned it. We could have spent so much longer on all sorts. So much longer giving you time to do the graphic score. That's something that you may need to revisit. So much longer having a sing song and going through I Vow to Thee, My Country, and you having a go at singing it. And but maybe that's something you revisit and have a go at. This lesson could easily have been an hour. But here's a final sort of activity for you to have a go at. Now, right at the start, I said that Jupiter is in lots and lots of sections. So we've listened to the coda, the end bit, we've listened to the beginning, and we've listened to the sort of hymn section. But there are other things going on in this piece of music that make it just an amazing, awesome piece of music. Lots of other ideas. So how about having a go at creating a graphic score for one of those other ideas as well, and thinking about how you would use your symbols and pictures to represent the sounds and the colour to enhance your ideas. There's so much that you could do graphically with sections of this music. So that's sort of the activity that I would suggest you have a go at. Explore it. Listen to live orchestras playing the music. It will bowl you over. It is just a beautiful, beautiful piece of music as a whole. It wasn't Holst's favourite movement from the planets. We will be visiting that one next week. But it's certainly mine. And when you've visited all of these 7 planets and you've listened to all of the 7 movements from the Planet Suite, I wonder which one you will come back to and say, that's my favourite. We have reached the end of today's lesson, and it has been an epic lesson in so many ways. Next week, we will be visiting Saturn. And in the Planet Suite, it's called Saturn, the Bringer of Old Age. And this next movement was actually Holst's favourite. So until next week, bye for now. And I hope to see you for Saturn, the Bringer of Old Age.